Hello and welcome back to the Gaming News Canada show. As per usual, I'm your host, Steve McAllister. On August 1st, iGaming Ontario announced a successful bid for a long-awaited centralized self-exclusion system for Ontario's regulated sports wagering and online gaming industry. It turns out the bid was of the joint variety, the winning bid, with Integrity Compliance 360, better known as IC360, and IXUP were selected by iGo to develop the new system. Under this partnership, IC360 and IXUP will create a system that A, integrates seamlessly with all regulated Ontario iGaming operator systems, including OLG's online gaming products. B, provides anyone 19 and older with easy access to create and manage their self-exclusion profile. And C, implements identity verification, registration, renewal, and reinstatement processes that are intuitive, simple, and offer supporting resources. That comes from the iGo press release that went out at the first of the month. To discuss the incoming system and the reasons for Ontario becoming a pioneer in a broader self-exclusion program among regulated industries across North America, we welcome back to the podcast Eric Frank, the president of IC360, and we welcome to her Gaming News Canada show debut, Catherine Jarmain, the Director of Industry Programs and Monitoring for iGaming Ontario. Before we ask Eric about the partnership that IC360 has with IXUP, we'd like to speak with you with the rather large news that came out of the out of iGo this week. We record this podcast on Friday, August 16th, and about 24 hours earlier, it was announced that Executive Director Martha Otten will retire at the end of this year. For the past 12 years, Martha has been a major player in the province's alcohol, cannabis, gaming, and horse racing sectors in her roles with both the Alcohol and Gaming Commissioner of Ontario and since the beginning of 2021 with iGaming Ontario. Under Martha's leadership, the province's regulated marketplace was put together and opened in 14 months, and today is one of the largest, if not the largest, legal gambling market in the world, with 50 operators currently on board. We look forward to sitting down with Martha this fall, but today we want to recognize the work she's done at the AGCO and iGo, and on a personal note, I wish her very, very well in her retirement, although that's still 4+ months away, and I'm sure, Martha, there's still a lot of work for her to do. Kat, I just asked quickly, was the staff at iGo caught off guard by the announcement this week?
Well, thanks for the question, Steve. I can't speak for all the staff, but I was and I wasn't caught off guard, if that makes any sense. So I know that Martha's had such a long, respected and tremendous career in the Ontario Public Service. I had a sense that she, could have retired a while ago. And my intuition was telling me that might be coming soon. But at the same time, when I found out the other day, I was surprised and also sad. I personally have worked for Martha for 6 years. I followed her over to iGo to launch this market to make it safer for players. And so many of us have done that. She has not only led us to regulating this market, but also built a dynamic agency in the meantime. We all look up to her leadership, and I know that we will all miss her.
I will say too, Catherine, that on that comment about leadership, that I think I've had a chance to bump into Martha at gaming conferences for the last 3+ years, and she really is a class act, and she's a great ambassador for this industry in Ontario. And I think someone who operators, suppliers, and anybody who's got any kind of skin in the game in the gambling industry has a lot of respect for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Eric, I guess I should just ask you. I mean, have you had a chance in your time with First Odds on Compliance, now with IC360, to have any dealings at all with Martha?
Certainly, we've crossed paths from time to time. Done some work in the Ontario market, particularly around some launches and helping some clients get launched there. And I can say, not just of Martha, but the entire staff we've dealt with. It's just a fantastic professional organization, and so obviously that comes from her leadership on down. So certainly sad to see her go, but excited for her and taking this time. But nonetheless, still excited to work with Catherine and the rest of the team to deliver centralized self-exclusion.
I'll just mention too, Catherine, that the news release did say that the board of directors will start putting together a game plan for searching for Martha's replacement. And I think you would agree that whoever gets that job will walk into a pretty good situation, given the work that IGO's done, and not just getting the industry together in a short period of time. And when Martha and I spoke at the Canadian Gaming Conference, we had Martha on the podcast back in June during the Canadian Gaming Summit. We talked about it's the old the analogy about the duck swimming in the water, where everything's calm above the surface, but below the feet are paddling furiously. But iGaming Ontario seemed to find its stride pretty quickly, and with announcements like the one that you've made with the self-exclusion system, the organization seems to be in a pretty good place right now.
Absolutely, Steve. We are in great shape. We are really proud of where we are, what we've accomplished in these last 2 years. Yes, Martha does leave big shoes to fill, but also leaves an organization poised to move on to the next stage. And we're really pleased about having gotten to this stage, signed the contract to build the centralized self-exclusion system.
Hey, Rick, let's start with, I'll ask Catherine in a second about how IGO got to this place to launch this system, self-exclusion system. But we were talking before we hit the record button about just, relationships and technology. And it's funny, anytime you talk to people in this industry about collaboration and partnerships and that, I mean, technology, innovation, and relationships always are three words that always seem to be part of those conversations. Can you just, like, how did this all come together between IC360 and IXUP to get involved in the RFP and ultimately win this bid?
Yeah, absolutely. So from IC360's perspective, our goal is to build and deliver the best compliance and integrity technology for the industry. So whether we're talking about integrity monitoring or prohibited persons, whether we're talking about just access to regulatory information, our goal is always to build the best products for the industry. Whether we do that in-house or in collaboration, we don't rule anything out. So when it came to looking at centralized self-exclusion and the RFP that was issued by IGO, we took a look around and figured out how do we win this RFP, but for us, winning that RFP means how do we put ourselves in a position to provide the best product for IGO and for Ontario as a market. And as you said, I mean, relationships are partially what this business is all about. It's a small business, and we've had some personal relationships in the past. We've talked about collaboration with IXUP in the past. Ian Penrose sits on the board of IXUP. He's also on the board of Playtech. I've had a tremendous respect for Ian for some time, and where he's been in the industry, his history is incredible, and so he was part of putting us together to at least have a discussion, putting us IC360 and IXUP together to have a discussion. And when we got to know the team over at IXUP and understood kind of really who they are at their core and in terms of what they've done in Australia for self-exclusion, and the opportunity to work together, it just seemed like a really exciting opportunity. So we decided to come together, figure out how best to leverage their technology that they have in Australia with our understanding of the North American market and the players in the Ontario space already, the relationships that we've had across the board with AGCO, with IGO as a team at IC360. And we just thought it was a situation where 1 + 1 didn't equal 2; it equaled at a minimum 3. So that's where we came.
Catherine, I mean, I think Martha, even going back to the 1-year anniversary of the market in April 2023, it was mentioned back then that this centralized self-exclusion program was a priority for IGO. And I want to be fair here. When I said off the top, it's long awaited. This isn't an easy thing to put together. And as Eric mentioned off before we hit the record button, this is a complex system that's being developed, and it is unique, and it's something that we don't see in many, if not all, jurisdictions around the world.
Yeah, you're right about that, Steve. And in fact, it was always part of the plan. Just going back to why we're doing this, why the market was regulated in Ontario, was to make it safer for players. And so this is a requirement of the AGCO standards. It was always a part of the plan. We put a lot of work into thinking about how to get it right. In fact, because it is so complex. We have been collaborating and consulting with our partners at AGCO and OLG. We consulted with our operators, many of whom have similar experiences with centralized systems in other jurisdictions. We talked with technology suppliers. We've spoken with providers of support and treatment services. We spoke with people who focus on prevention. And through that process, we were able to put together the requirements for this complex system, which went into the competitive RFP process.
I guess in layman's terms, Catherine, this system's pretty straightforward. If you're someone who, say, has 5 or 6 sportsbook and iGaming accounts, now you can register in one place, and if you do have what you perceive might be a bit of a gambling problem, you have the ability to self-exclude yourself with one-stop shopping. And hopefully I've got that right. And if that's the case, it not only benefits the customer, but benefits the operator as well, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. None of the operators want players who have concerns about their gambling to be gambling with them. And it's an important form of support, not only for players, but for any individual. This system will be, anyone over the age of 19 will be able to register and create an account to self-exclude, even if they're not previously a registered player on one of the iGaming sites.
Hey, Eric, just again, what I just described sounds really simple, but again, we're using the duck analogy. If text the feet paddling underwater, I mean, the technology involved in this, I would think, is incredibly complex, even in a world today where there is so much technology available.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when we came into this and looking at the RFP as it was proposed or made public, we really had 3 key fundamental factors we wanted to meet in our system and what we built. And first was obviously meet the requirements of the RFP as outlined by IGO. Fairly basic factor. The second one was really to deliver a product that's intuitive and easily to implement for the operators. We know that they have a lot on their plate in terms of their tech stacks, and so delivering a product that was intuitive and fairly easy to implement was critical. But the third factor was the most important, and that was provide the patrons and consumers who are struggling with addiction or issues around related to responsible gambling, just provide them with a very intuitive, easy system, one stop shop for them to handle and deal with this issue. And that was absolutely at the fundamental, both in what IGO put out in their expectations in the RFP, but also at the core of what we want to deliver. So when we did that, we looked at the existing solutions again that were out there, and what IXUP had done with the BetStop National Self-Exclusion Register in Australia, and the technology behind that, combined with what we had done at IC360 with ProhiBet, which is a very similar type product, but for a very different purpose. We knew that putting those 2 technology teams together and offering it could lead to an offering that we knew would meet those core three factors for us.
Hey, Catherine, what kind of conversations and how many of those conversations kind of happened with industry stakeholders to get to the point where you could put out the latest RFP that led to this partnership?
That's a good question. We were going through the consultation process over the first couple of years, I would say. Certainly it was, the number in my head is 65, but I don't know if that's correct, but we've had a lot of discussions over the years. It seemed like a long time, but as we were putting together these requirements, we were thinking about it a long time. And just, because of this complexity, we really needed to ensure that we were going to get it right.
I guess one other question I have, Catherine, is just how would this be communicated to players? Like, is this where every operator you go to now will have language saying, "Hey, go to our sign up for our centralized system"? How do you get that message across to players?
Yes, absolutely. Every single regulated operator will be communicating this through their own websites, but you will also look for other ways to communicate it to people who may not, be on those gambling sites right now. One of the innovative ways that we're approaching responsible gambling at IGO is that we've asked our operators to dedicate a certain proportion of their revenue to marketing focused on responsible gambling messaging. And so, what a good option would be is, when we get ready to launch, is to ask that to be focused on, raising awareness of the centralized self-exclusion among, players and the public more broadly, for those who may be interested in registering.
Eric, I mean, I guess obviously there is some good that comes out of a system like this, but at the same time, there's also some sound business reasons for doing this, and I would think this will be a product that IXUP and IC360 can also take into other jurisdictions, correct?
Absolutely. Certainly, the discussion around self-exclusion and centralized self-exclusion is not limited to Ontario. Hats off to Ontario for taking that step and really leading in the North American market. But these are discussions that we're having at conferences that you hear coming up as we go to talk to regulators about other products and services. Certainly, this is at the core and in a problem that other jurisdictions want to solve. And to their credit, there have been types of systems out there, but I think what IGO has proposed here and what we intend to offer is a system that provides the customer a portal, a place, very easy access to make their decisions across all the regulated platforms very simply, and also allow the regulated platforms to integrate and obtain that information in a very simple manner and use technology to do that. So yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have the opportunity to prove ourselves in Ontario. But as we look at other jurisdictions in Canada and the news about Alberta and others as well, certainly that's on our mind is the best way to win future business is to do amazing work now, and that's where the message I'm sending to the team that's involved day to day on this project.
Yeah, we can't get through a podcast these days without mentioning Alberta. So I'm glad we got that. We got that in. Hey, Catherine, just going back to Eric's point about Ontario kind of being a leader in regulated gambling from the get-go here. I just wonder what the genesis of this self-exclusion system was. Was it the folks at IGO sitting down in a room and look at what else is happening in other jurisdictions like Australia that Eric mentioned earlier? Like, why has this been a priority for the organization?
going back to the beginning of thinking about why we're regulating this market and the purpose, which is really one of the main objectives was consumer protection and better support for players. And self-exclusion broadly is an important tool for people who may have concerns about their gambling. It was part of the AGCO's registrar standards that each operator have its own self-exclusion program, but also that there would be eventually a centralized self-exclusion system like this one to provide a better, safer, more player-focused way of engaging with self-exclusion.
I want to get both your thoughts on this next question, and Eric, I'll start with you. And it seems from what the two of you described that this is a real positive step forward when it comes to responsible gambling. And I think maybe even right now in Ontario, that responsible gambling is more front and center right now than the angst around sports betting advertising was in the early days of the market. And for me, Eric, when Catherine refers to marketing dollars, it seems that this partnership and when this program gets launched, this is a great opportunity for the regulated industry in Ontario for every stakeholder to lean more into the fact that responsible gambling is a priority, because I think sometimes there's still a perception out there or a belief that operators are just paying lip service when they do talk about RG.
Agreed. I think that perception certainly is out there. I can say from the discussions I've had with call them colleagues, call them really good friends in the space that are focused on compliance and particularly responsible gambling, and are sitting in the seats at operators. That's certainly not the case. They do take their responsibilities seriously, but I think this is an opportunity to really turn that discussion and have everybody on board. Obviously supportive, not because they're mandated to do this, but because it's the right thing to do. Self-exclusion or responsible gambling and problem gambling affects people of all ages, all types, and it's important that this isn't targeted to hurt anyone. It's really to help folks. But for example, if you look at Australia and what's been done in what IXUP and the partnership that we've done with BetStop, the National Self-Exclusion Register in Australia, looking at the numbers there, roughly half of the participants that have self-excluded are under the age of 30. It's been live since 2020. It's been about a year that it's been live, and they've done, I think the number is 17 billion checks against the self-exclusion register. 27,000 people have registered for the system. So there's like the process works, and it's helping people of all walks of life here. And I think at the end of the day, certainly the regulators understand that. Us as a compliance and integrity company understand that, but I truly do believe the operators are bought into that as well.
Catherine?
Yeah, you talked about the negative perception, I think, of gambling operators, and that also makes me think about the negative perception many people have of gambling as an activity, which creates a stigma for people who may be experiencing harms or having concerns about their gambling. And so, that is always, or it can be a deterrent to seeking help. And so we need to, it's important to us to be able to provide options for support and ensure that people know where to go if they do have concerns.
I don't know who can answer this question, but in terms of a timeline, like when do you, I guess you're the ones developing it, when do you have a date that this thing will be ready to launch?
Yeah, look, I think we are the RFP there was a timeline laid out in the RFP in terms of the RFP process, and I think iGo worked incredibly hard and was ahead of schedule just in the RFP process. We've now been selected at the beginning of this month, and so we've started the process. We're going through the early workshops, and we want to move this as quickly as possible, but at the same time, we want to move this at a pace that is going to deliver to iGo the best possible product that we can deliver, with the least amount of hiccups in the beginning. We're all confident that we can bring this product to iGo on the timeline that we've suggested in the RFP, but we certainly aren't going to, and we're going to move as quick as we can, but we're certainly not going to rush in order to beat a timeline. We're gonna do this and do it right. I think we are, and not to speak for Catherine or for anybody at iGo, but I think we are very well positioned, and potentially, I'm hoping this is partially why we were selected. We are incredibly well positioned based on our track record, our history, both at IC360, but also certainly at IXUP with BetStop and the National Self-Exclusion register they have in Australia. So I know I didn't answer your question, Steve, but I do promise that we are, this is a priority for both us and IXUP, and as you said, the opportunity for us as a business in other markets that certainly plays into this, and as I said, to the best way to win future business is always to deliver the best business you currently have presently. So, that's kind of our plan.
Yeah, I'm sure, Catherine, it'd be a nice retirement gift for Martha to have the system launched by December 31st. But to Eric's point again, and I may have asked a bit of an unfair question, but to Eric's point, obviously getting it right has to be first and foremost.
Getting it right is first and foremost, and we are all excited and eager to get going, and we just want to make this happen in the best way possible.
Last question, Catherine, and Eric may want to jump in on this too, but we talk. This is a very competitive industry. It's one of the conversations that myself and other journalists have with Martha, and we've had with Mitch Davis in the past, is access to more data about the industry in Ontario, and the competitive issue always comes up, and we get that, and I think the fact that the OLG is going to be part of this system is a positive story as well, given what we see going on right now between operators and other provincial lottery and gaming corporations across the country. I think I know what the answer is here, but again, just bringing all these different people to the table, all these different organizations to the table. I do have to say, I think iGo deserves some credit for getting that done.
Oh, thank you. We pleased with where we are right now, and we're grateful for the collaboration of all of our partners and all of the stakeholders, and all of those have contributed to where we are now. And we will continue to be working with closely as we go forward.
And I will say too, Eric, I mean, you IC360 works across a lot of different jurisdictions in the U.S., so you're certainly aware of the competition and the pulling and pushing to make things happen. So I'm sure that you that you agree that getting all these operators together, bringing the Provincial Lottery and Gaming Association organization, that's no easy feat.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting all the parties involved and moving forward on one solution on any part of this industry or others is difficult. And like you said, Steve, I mean, hats off to iGo for getting that done.
Eric Frank is the president of IC360. Catherine Jarmain is the director of industry programs and monitoring for iGaming Ontario. We will make sure we include a link with the podcast text to the announcement that iGo made back on August 1st. Eric, great to have you on the podcast again. Congratulations to you and the folks at IXUP and also to your colleague Sebastian Jedrzejewski at IC360 for making this happen. And maybe we'll try to get you back on the podcast once you blow the candles on the cake launching the self-exclusion system.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And Catherine, thank you so much. And we're definitely going to bring you back again. I think you have been an audience member of our previous LinkedIn audio shows now, but really appreciate you coming on a Friday afternoon and the last month of summer. And we'll definitely have you back on again too, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Steve.
That's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada show. As always, you can find us on the various podcast platforms and along at gamingnewscanada.ca. Again, thank you so much to Catherine, Jarmain, and Eric Frank for joining us today, and we'll see everybody again really soon.
Thank you for listening to the Gaming News Canada show. Sign up for our newsletter at gamingnewscanada.ca. Follow Steve McAllister on LinkedIn. Message Steve if you're interested in being a sponsor or featured guest.